Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Benchley Night. It is Sunday. What is it, like January 8th? This will be the last Benchley Night for a few weeks because I'll be on the road with the great Betty Sue. She's upstairs getting her life together. She has a challenge coming up. We're going to be taking the train. We're going to be taking the train to New Orleans, and then she's going to open a bunch of dates with James Murtry, and then we're going to go explore Western Louisiana for a day or two, and then we will be in Austin for a week, and then I go teach in Arizona, and she'll come with me out to that, and then I head home and she goes and does a couple of dates in Arizona. So she's going to be toggling back and forth between packing as a human being and packing as a touring musician, which is not easy. So I'm here holding down Benchley Night by myself. I think Charbonneau is still out. Maybe Charbonneau is visiting Betty Sue upstairs. But Charbonneau may still be out exploring. He has a new collar today that he's very, very proud of, thanks to our excellent neighbor, Kelly Milliken. She got a whole bunch of new cat collars and gave us several because Charbonneau's was starting to unravel, making him look decidedly disreputable. Anyway, hi, everybody. Hi, Terry Hudson. Hi, John Wilhelm. Hi, Carol Fulkerson. Hi, Martha. My goodness, I need to have a step. I just came running back from the studio where I fed Studio Cat Corduroy, and she had a lot to tell me. 33 Bridge Street Live. It's a original music series that takes place out in the big room of my studio building. Not my studio building, the big room in which my studio is located. They had a live event this afternoon, and she came out and supervised a bunch of that, apparently. And then she needed to report to me how it was. Anyway, we have a few people to thank. Tonight's liberal snowplowing do-gooder beneficiary is the Windham County Humane Society, because how can you go wrong supporting a humane society? That's what I'd like. No, I wouldn't like to know. I just want to say that. You can't go wrong supporting a humane society, and the Windham County Humane Society is a particularly good one. So we have a few people to thank. We need to thank, but before we do, this week, unlike most weeks, our good friend Catherine Fisher, I think she's celebrating her birthday today, so I don't think she's with us. But if she watches this in the future sometime, happy birthday, Catherine Fisher! Thanks for being part of the Benchley Night Circle. It's appreciated. Well, we need to thank the peripatetic, but not quite as peripatetic as she might want to be sometimes, the great Terry Hudson. We need to thank a woman who stopped by this afternoon with a liberal snowplowing do-gooder check for us, for the Humane Society, and a bag of treats for Charbonneau and Yorkie. Thank you, Ms. Martha Rowley. You're the best. Out there in Fulton, Missouri, making sure that the sheep come into this world and have a wonderful time while they're here. And then making sure they get dispatched with aplomb. Our good friend, Ms. Carol Fulkerson. Out there in Taos, New Mexico, trying to get her new dog and her cat to get along, trying to get Fergus the Corky to get along with Tess the cat. And Tess is really not having much of it. My good friend, Ms. Meg Miser. Oh, someone who is doing the duty of children everywhere, which is to take care of parents as things become more challenging. My friend from Exeter and great patron of the arts, Ms. Sharon Kegeris. My partner in Roots on the Rails, she's busy, ladies and gentlemen. She's very busy. She's got the Wales trip is full. The Scotland trip is full. The Tom Russell trip across Texas is nearly full or going to be full. And then she's also doing a trip to her homeland, ladies and gentlemen. Her homeland. She was raised in Istanbul, and we're doing a trip to Istanbul. And if you're interested in going to Istanbul, go to rootsontherails.com and read about Sarah's trip. But meanwhile, she is the best mom ever to the most neurotic dachshund ever. Thank you, Sarah Ovenden. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, where the corn is not as high as an elephant's eye right now because there's no corn. Might be as high as a dead elephant's eye. But we do know that dead elephants are mostly found in Irwin, Tennessee. Do you know that story, John Wilhelm? Do you know that story about the elephant that came to a bad end in Irwin, Tennessee? If you don't, Google it. It's pretty interesting. John Wilhelm in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you, John. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where they put the infra in the infrastructure, where they put the structure in the infrastructure, where they put it all together and make great things. There goes Betty Sue, far in the background, where they do great things. My beloved, very, 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 very tall cousin, the excellent Nat Hunter, and his wonderful wife, Elise. Anyway, tonight's reading is a Robert Benchley called The Tortures of Weekend Visiting. We've read this one before, but it's a good one. It's a good one, ladies and gentlemen. The present labor situation shows to what a pretty pass things may come because of a lack of understanding between the parties involved. I bring in the present labor situation just to give a touch of timeliness to this thing. Had I been writing for the Christmas number, I should have begun as follows. The indiscriminate giving of Christmas presents shows to what a pretty pass things may come because of a lack of understanding between the parties involved. The idea to be driven home here is that things may come to a pretty pass by the parties involved in an affair of any kind if they do not come to an understanding before commencing operations. I hope I have made my point clear. Especially is this true. Watch out carefully now, as the whole nub of this article will be coming along in just a minute. Especially is this true in the relations between host and guest on weekend visits. There, you have it. In fact, the title of this whole thing might very well be The Need for a Clearer Definition of Relations Between Host and Guest on Weekend Visits, and not be overstating it at that. The logic of this will be apparent to anyone who has ever been a host or a guest at a weekend party, a classification embracing practically all humans over 11 years of age who can put powder on their nose or tie a bow tie. Who has not wished that his host would come out frankly at the beginning of the visit and state in no uncertain terms the rules and preferences of the household in such matters as the breakfast hour? And who has not sounded his guest to find out what he likes in the regulation of his diet and modus vivendi? That means mode of living. Collective bargaining on the part of labor unions and capital makes it possible for employers to know just what the workers think on matters of common interest. Is collective bargaining between host and guest so impossible then? Take, for example, the matter of arising in the morning. Of course, where there is a large house party, the problem is a simple one, for you can always hear the others pattering about and brushing their teeth You can regulate your own arising by the number of people who seem to be astir. But if you are the only guest, there is apt to be a frightful misunderstanding. At what time's breakfast, you ask? Oh, any old time on Sundays, replies the hostess with a generous gesture. Sleep as late as you like. This is Liberty Hall. The sentiment in this attitude is perfectly bully, but there is nothing that you can really take hold of in it. It satisfies at the time, but in the morning, there is a vagueness about it that is simply terrifying. Let us say that you are awake at 8. You listen and you hear no one stirring. Then over on the cool pillow again until 8:20. Again, up on the elbow with head cocked to one side. There's a creak in the direction of the stairs. They may all be up and going down to breakfast. It is but the work of a moment to bound out of bed and listen at the door. Perhaps open it modestly and peer out. Death-like silence, broken only, as the phrase goes, by the ticking of the hall clock and not a soul in sight. Probably they are late sleepers. Maybe 11 o'clock is their Sunday rising hour. Some people are like that. Shut the door then and sit on the edge of the bed. More sleep is out of the question. Let's take a look at the pictures in the guest room just to pass the time. Here's one of Lorna Doone. How do you do, Lorna? Here's a group, taken in 1902, showing your host in evening clothes holding a mandolin, probably a member of his college musical club. Rather unkempt looking bunch, you must say. Well, how about this one? An etching showing suspicious looking barges on what is probably the Thames. Fair enough at that. Back to the door and listen again. Tick tock, tick tock. Probably if you started your tub, you'd wake the whole house. Let's all sit down on the edge of the bed again. Hello, here are some books on the table. 50 famous sonnets, illustrated by Maxfield Parrish. Never touch a sonnet before breakfast. My Experience in the Alps by a woman mountain climber who's written on the flyleaf. To my good friends, the Eldridges, in memory of many happy days together. In memory of many happy days together at Chamonix, October 1907. Well, that settles that. Essay on Compensation in Limp Leather by Ralph Waldo Emerson, published by Houghton Mifflin and Company. Oh, very well. You suppose they thought that would be over your head, didn't they? Well, we'll just show them. We'll read it, just for spite. Opening to the red ribbon. Of the like nature is that expectation of change which instantly follows the suspension of our voluntary activity, the terror of cloudless noon. By the way, it must be nearly noon now. 10 minutes past 9. Oh, well. Well, the only thing to do is get dressed, go on out and walk about the grounds. Eliminate the tub is too noisy. And so, very cautiously, almost clandestinely, you proceed to dress. And now, just to reverse the process, suppose you are the host. You have arisen at 8 and listened at the guest's door. No sound. Tiptoe back and get dressed, talking in whispers to your wife, the hostess, and cramming flannel bears into the infant's mouth to keep him from disturbing the sleeper. Well, Bill looked tired last night. Better let him sleep a little longer, you suggest. And so, downstairs, On your hands and knees, look over the Sunday paper. Then a bracing walk on the porch, resulting in a terrific appetite. A glance at the watch shows 9 o'clock. Sunday breakfast is usually at 8:30. The warm aroma of coffee creeps in from the kitchen, and somewhere, someone is baking muffins. This is awful. You suppose it feels something like this to be caught on an ice floe without any food and starve to death. Only there you can't smell coffee and muffins. You sneak into the dining room and steal one of the property oranges from the sideboard. But little Edgar sees you and sets up such a howl that you have to give it to him. The hostess suggests that your friend may have sleeping sickness. Weakened by hunger, you hotly resent this, and one word leads to another. Oh, very well, I'll go up and roust him out, you snarl. Upstairs again, and poise in listening attitude just in front of the guest's door. Slowly, the door opens inch by inch, and finally, his head is edged cautiously out toward yours. Hello, Bill, you say flatly. What are you getting up this time of the morning for? I thought I told you to sleep late. Morning, Ed, he says, equally flatly. I hope I haven't kept you all waiting. Then you both lie and you eat breakfast. Such a misunderstanding is apt to go to almost any length. I once knew of a man on a weekend visit who spent an entire Sunday in his room listening at his door to see if the family were astir. Well, in the meantime, the family were, one by one, tiptoeing to his door to see if they could detect any signs of life from him. Each thought that the other probably needed rest. Along about 3 p.m, the family threw all hospitality aside and finally ate breakfast, deadening the sound of the cutlery as much as possible, little dreaming that their guest was looking through a prayer each day calendar for the 9th time and seriously considering letting himself down from the window on a sheet and making for the next train. Shortly after dark, persistent rumors got abroad that he had done away with himself, and everyone went up and sniffed for gas. It was only when the maid, who was not in on the secret, bolted into the room to turn down his bed for the night that she found him tiptoeing about, packing and unpacking his bag and listening eagerly at the wall. Now, don't ask how it happened that the maid didn't know that his bed hadn't been made that morning. What difference does this make anyway? It is such questions as that blight any attempt at individual writing in this country. Don't think just because I've taken all this space to deal with the rising hour problem that there are no other points to be made. Oh, not at all. There is, for instance, the question of exercise. After dinner, the host says to himself, something must be done. I wonder if Bill likes to walk. Aloud, he says, well, Bill, how about a little hike in the country? A hike in the country being the last thing in the world that Bill wants. Bill says, righto, anything you say. And so, though walking is a tremendous trial to the host, who has weak ankles, he bundles up with a great show of heartiness and grabs his stick as if this were the only thing he lived for. After about a mile of hobbling along the country road, the host says, hopefully, don't let me tire you out, old man. Anytime you want to turn back, just say the word. The guest, thinking longingly of the fireside, scoffs at the idea of turning back, insisting that if there is one thing in all the world that he likes better than walking, it is running. So on they jog, hippity hop, each wishing it would rain so that they could turn around and go home. Here again, the thing may go to almost tragic lengths. Suppose neither has the courage to suggest the return move. They might walk on into Canada, or they might become exhausted and have to be taken into a roadhouse and eat a $2 old-fashioned Southern dinner of fried chicken and waffles. The imagination revolts at a further contemplation of the possibilities of this lack of cooperation between guest and host. I once visited a man who had an outdoor swimming pool on his estate. Consider that as very casually stated. It was in April, long before spring had really understood what was expected of her. My first night there, my host said, "Are you a morning plunger?" Thinking he referred to a tub plunge in a warm bathroom, I glowed, and I said, "You bet. I'll call for you at 7 in the morning then," he said, "and we'll go out to the pool." It was evidently his morning custom, and I was not going to have it said of me that a middle-aged man could outdo me in virility. So at 7 in the morning in a dense fog with now and then a slash of cold rain, we picked our way out to the pool and staged a vivid Siberian moving picture scene showing naked peasants bathing in the Nevsky. My visit lasted 5 days, and I afterwards learned from one to whom my host confided that it was the worst 5 days he had ever gone through, that he has had chronic joint trouble as a result of those plunges. But I couldn't be outdone by a mere stripling, he said, and the boy certainly enjoyed it. All of this might have been avoided by the posting of a sign in a conspicuous place in my bedroom, reading as follows: "Personally, I dislike swimming in the pool at this time of year. Guests wishing to do so may obtain towels at the desk." How very simple and how very practical. The sign system is the only solution that I can offer. It is crude and brutal, but it admits to no misunderstanding. A sign in each guest room giving the hours of meals, political and religious preferences of the family, general views on exercise, etc., with a blank for the guest to fill out, stating his own views on these subjects, would make it possible to visit or entertain with a sense of security that has thus far been unknown upon our planet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right. This will do it for Benchley Night till the end of the month. And I think after that, it's time, I'll check the calendar, but I think it's going to be time for the annual reading of James Thurber's My Life in Hard Times. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's what's coming up next. You take good care, and we'll see you at the end of the month. Bye-bye.